प्रेजेंटेड बाय ईबिक्स कैश, हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
Hello and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. Here are the headlines tonight. Markets extend gains for the second straight day as Sensex surges over 400 points. Nifty ends above 17,800. Oil and gas, IT stocks rally. Reliance Industries market cap crosses 17.5 lakh crore as the stock hits a new lifetime high. Reliance was the biggest contributor to the gains in today's session. Only 4 days of coal reserves left in India. More than half of the nation's plants on alert for outages after surge in electricity demand and slump in local coal output. We get you an exclusive conversation with Mahesh Vyas, MD and CEO, Centre for Monitoring Indian Economy, on job growth in India. Oyo IPO set to bestow near 5,000 crore rupee windfall for a majority of its employees. We get you more on that exclusive story. Moody's changes India's rating outlook to stable from negative, affirms Baa3 rating. Well, after a weak start, the Indian stock market closed on a positive note on Tuesday amid mixed global cues. The Sensex closing at 50,744, that's up about 450 points, just about. Nifty closing at 17,822, up 131 points. ONGC, IndusInd Bank, Coal India, IOC and SBI Life making up the gainers list. Interesting to still continue to see plenty of old economy names on that list. 4.2% on a Coal India. IndusInd Bank also looking particularly good in today's session with a 5% gain coming in there. On the downside, Cipla, Hindalco, Shree Cements, Sun Pharma, Tata Consumer Products, some of the names that lagged behind in trade, but cuts were limited just about 1% or so largely. And a mixed bag, some of the pharma majors there, so defensive sitting out in today's session. So except for PSU banks, realty and pharma, all other sectoral indices ended in the green. Oil and gas, power, IT, all up between 1 to 3%. The BSE mid-cap and small-cap indices ended well in the green. Moody's Investor Service has today changed the outlook on the Government of India's ratings to stable from negative and affirmed the country's foreign currency and local currency long-term issuer ratings and the local currency senior unsecured rating at Baa3. Moody's has also affirmed India's other short-term local currency rating at P3. The decision to change the outlook to stable reflects Moody's view that the downside risks from negative feedback between the real economy and financial system are now receding. With higher capital cushions and greater liquidity, banks as well as non-bank financial institutions pose much lesser risk to the sovereign than Moody's had previously anticipated. And while risks stemming from a high debt burden and weak debt affordability do remain, Moody's does expect that the economic environment will allow for a gradual reduction of the general government fiscal deficit over the next few years, preventing further deterioration of the sovereign credit profile. A massive 8.5 million new jobs added in September as the unemployment rate declined to 6.86% during the month from 8.32% in August 21. According to data released by CMIE, both urban and rural unemployment shrunk, a remarkable improvement. Our managing editor, Siddharth Zarabi, caught up with Mahesh Vyas, MD and CEO at the Centre for Monitoring Indian Economy. Here's a slice of that conversation.
Thank you very much, Mahesh, for joining us today. This number seems really big in the context of what's been happening on the job front. Please deconstruct this for our audience in terms of what it really means.
It means something good. It means that we are seeing big jobs coming back. And I think this is one of the best numbers I've seen for a very long time. 8.5 million jobs is a very large number. The total amount of employment in India is of the order of 405 or 410 million jobs at the most. And when you add 8 million to that, that's a very large number. It's like a big increase in employment. So in the month of September, oftentimes employment is not very great. because the harvest season has not begun as yet, and the sowing season is over. So this is the time when employment can go a little weaker, but we have seen an increase. And the increase is all in non-farm business. So it is not in agriculture, it is non-farm business that has grown. And the largest increase is in construction industry. So more construction is happening in rural India. I think that's a good sign.
Mr. Vyas, since you spoke about construction, would it be fair to say that the construction sector is therefore by default one of the biggest engines of the current economic revival and normalization that we are seeing?
Well, the construction industry is playing a major role in the revival efforts that we are seeing, or the revival engine that we are seeing. And in particular in construction, I will say the credit goes to a great extent to road building. So the central government is also spending a lot more on roads. We are seeing more roads getting commissioned. We are seeing more employment happening in construction, which is largely roads, but it is non-roads also. So yes, construction is playing a good role in the revival process.
Apart from construction, what other sectors do you think we can explain to our audience which are adding to this job growth that we have spoken about?
The other sector which has done very well in September is even more encouraging, because the growth has come from the manufacturing sector. Now, the manufacturing sector usually does not do very well, and we are always disappointed. Why don't manufacturing jobs grow? And this month we have seen that a good number of manufacturing jobs have come in again. The growth has come in manufacturing jobs in rural India. So construction also is largely rural India, and manufacturing is also rural India. Within manufacturing, the biggest increases are in food industries and textile industries. So that's where the spurt has been. There isn't much growth in the services sector this month.
One of the other elements that we've been noticing, and this is the dip in people seeking work under the rural employment scheme, the NREGA scheme. Does that explain why this is happening? What are the reasons? If you could again explain that for our audience.
So if there is a higher demand for labor from non-MNREGA schemes, that means from other schemes, people will go to MNREGA only if they do not get employment in alternate places. Of course, the wages in MNREGA did go up last year, but still, largely people will prefer to work in manufacturing industries if they get salaried jobs over there, or they will work in other areas, and less so in MNREGA. But I think we should wait for a few more weeks, maybe a month, before we see the numbers for September and maybe even August get corrected. Because the MNREGA website gets updated on a daily basis, and the numbers do get revised very rapidly. At least the MNREGA employment in June, July was not small. So August, September, there may be revisions. I don't expect there to be a very big fall.
One of the other questions that would naturally come up with this kind of data would be, is the phase where we saw some amount of jobs being cut, we also saw wage degrowth, salaries were cut, and we have seen some anecdotal evidence of that being restored. But the question really that I have for you is that pain, that phase that we saw, the COVID-induced pain and job losses, at least in the organized salaried class segment, is that now conclusively over, Mahesh?
Well, it seems to be getting over. I don't have the guts as yet, the inner conviction as yet, to say it is conclusively over. Mind you, we are celebrating this 8.5 million jobs that have come back, but it is after such a long time. It is after nearly 18 months of next to no growth in employment. Just last month I had written that over the last 1 year, we have seen only 45,000 jobs getting added. So in 1 year, you had only on a net basis 45,000 jobs getting added. Then you have this 8.5 million jobs. Means that there is a lot of yo-yo. I mean, numbers go up and down because these jobs are too temporary. Mind you, a large part of the jobs around this time are also daily wage laborers. That means
Yes.
construction segment is not giving stable jobs. Although it's good to record that there has been an increase in salary jobs as well. I hope it continues to grow. I will not say it is conclusively over. This is a good sign. Let's build on it.
In yet another example of stupendous wealth creation for employees of India's new age startup firms, the forthcoming IPO of hospitality company Oyo is set to bestow a 5,000 crore rupee windfall for a majority of its employees. Here's more on that story.
Thousands of employees of hotel aggregator platform Auroville Stays Private Limited or Oyo are set to reap a 5,000 crore windfall with the public listing of the shares of the company. Leading the pack is the company's Global Chief Operating Officer and Chief Product Officer Abhinav Sinha, who holds stock options worth an estimated 1,100 crore rupees, the most among the company's top executives. Sinha is an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and Harvard University and is one of the nearly 4,100 employees at the firm who hold the prize stock options. Apart from Sinha, other Oyo executives who are expected to reap crores include Chief Financial Officer Abhishek Gupta, who holds stock options worth an estimated 130 crore rupees. Rakesh Kumar Prusti, Ankit Mathuria, Dinesh Ramamurthy and Vimal Chawla are also among those whose options will make them incredibly wealthy. SoftBank-backed company's IPO will consist of issuance of fresh issue of equity shares worth 7,000 crore rupees and an offer for sale of up to 1,430 crore rupees by promoters and existing shareholders. With this, Oyo joins some of the other top-tier Indian startups like Paytm, Policybazaar, Nykaa, which have filed the IPOs over the past few months. In the OFS, the largest shareholder of Oyo, SVF India Holdings aims to sell stake worth 1,328.53 crore rupees. Other shareholders like A1 Holdings, China Lodging Holdings and Global Ivy Ventures LLP intend to sell stakes as well. Oyo intends to use more than some proceeds from the IPO to prepay or repay certain borrowings taken to fund the organic and inorganic growth of its subsidiaries. As of July 2021, Oyo had a consolidated debt of 4,890.56 crore rupees. Oyo's IPO comes close on the heels of Zomato's bumper issue earlier this year. Will Oyo be a repeat? That's the big question on the street. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
Signaling a sustained pickup in economic activity, the goods and services tax e-way bill generation recovered to a 6-month high in September. Markets gearing up now for a packed festive season. Business Today's Dilasha Seth brings us the story.
In yet more evidence of improving economic activity, e-way bill data points towards brighter prospects of a further pickup in GST collections in the coming months. According to the data by the GST network, the IT backbone of the unified indirect tax regime, 6.79 crore e-way bills were generated on its portal in September 2021 compared to 6.58 crore in August 2021. Average daily e-way bill generation in September 2021 posted a growth of 6.6% over August at 22.6 lakh per day. E-way bills are compulsory for the movement of all consignments worth more than 50,000 rupees. Hence, is an early indicator of trends in demand and supply in the economy. This reflects in macroeconomic indicators with a lag. The sustained revival in e-way bill generation in September is expected to show up the GST collection numbers for October, providing more room for spending to the centre to fuel economic recovery. The GST collection numbers for October would largely capture transactions or supplies made in April. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
Ride-hailing major Ola on Tuesday said it has acquired Geospoc, a geospatial services provider. However, the company didn't disclose the cost of acquisition. Founded in 2015, Pune-based Geospoc provides niche location-based solutions, services and products to verticals such as banking, financial services, insurance, retail, precision agriculture, consumer goods and FMCG. TVS Motors has entered into a strategic partnership with Tata Power to enhance India's two-wheeler charging ecosystem. As part of the MOU, the two companies agreed to roll out electric vehicle charging infrastructure across India and deploy solar power technologies at TVS Motor locations. The partnership aims to create a large, dedicated electric two-wheeler charging infrastructure. SEBI on Monday imposed penalties totaling 1.02 crores on Aditya Birla Money for violations related to portfolio manager regulations, prohibition of fraudulent and unfair trade practices regulations, code of conduct under SEBI regulations, stockbroker regulations that is, 1992 and various SEBI circulars. Jindal Power and Steel announced Tuesday it's reported its highest ever quarterly steel sales. Steel sales increased 32% Q-on-Q during this period. Production was up 5% year-on-year. The company said it achieved these figures despite sluggish domestic demand in the monsoon season. Crude oil prices continue to skyrocket after a crucial decision by the oil production cartel, OPEC Plus, and its key allies to stick to the planned moderate production hike. The decision by the OPEC Plus alliance directly affects crude oil prices, which in turn has an impact on fuel prices of many importing countries. Here's more on that story.
The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Companies and its key allies decided to hike crude oil output in a moderate fashion. The production was increased by 4 lakh barrels per day in November. This jolted the Brent and WTI crude prices to $81 and $75 respectively, ending crude prices to 3-year highs and adding to inflationary pressure that consuming nations fear will derail an economy recovering from the pandemic. While the demand from the crude importing countries has surged in recent times, the cartel faced calls from big consumers such as the United States and India for extra supplies after oil prices surged more than 50% this year. The OPEC Plus alliance has been conservative in increasing the crude oil output, owing to the uncertainty caused by the pandemic. Additionally, the Deputy Prime Minister of Russia, Alexander Novak, has also said that the oil demand tends to ease in the fourth quarter. Whereas the petrol and diesel prices go up by the increase in taxes by the centre and state in our country, it is also heavily influenced by the surge in crude oil prices. Despite requests by crude consumers to increase output, the oil cartel took the moderate route and thus the fuel prices immediately zoomed in India. In Mumbai, the petrol prices surged to 108.43 rupees and diesel prices soared to 98.80 on October 5th. As the demand for oil is increasing, the supply struggle continues. It would be significant to look out for future hikes by the OPEC Plus alliance and its impact on fuel prices in India. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
Telecom major Bharti Airtel and its technology vendor Ericsson have conducted India's first 5G network demonstration in a rural geography. The demo took place at a village on the outskirts of Delhi NCR using 5G trial spectrum allocated to Airtel by the Department of Telecom. The company said the trial showcased the massive potential of 5G towards bridging the digital divide by enabling access to high-speed broadband. Listen in to what the Airtel CTO Randeep Sekhwa had to say.
On a site which is on the border of NCR, for 10 kilometers, we were able to show a 5G coverage in an NSA mode where the downlink was in sub-6 3500 and uplink was in 900. And we were able to show a 100 Mbps speed on a 5G smartphone, which means in rural areas, I mean, this is a typical installation. You will get around these ranges a 100 Mbps kind of experience. If you use a FWA terminal, which has got a better gain and it is mounted on a static location, then you can get speeds up to 200 Mbps at a distance of more than 10 kilometers.
Automaker Mahindra & Mahindra has unveiled 2 new higher specification variants for its recently launched flagship SUV. The company, which already offered up to 17 variants, has now added a new manual and automatic with all-wheel drive option for the top spec XUV 700 AX7 luxury diesel trim. While the former is priced at 19.99 lakhs, the top-of-the-line AWD version is priced at 22.89 lakhs, both ex-showroom Delhi. The newly launched Mahindra XUV 700 competes against the likes of Tata Safari, MG Hector, MG Hector Plus, Hyundai Alcazar and the Tata Harrier. Meanwhile, Mahindra Group Chairman Anand Mahindra tweeted pictures of the crowd at a Bengaluru showroom ahead of bookings opening on October 7th. Bengaluru-based direct-to-consumer fresh animal protein startup Licious has become India's 30th unicorn in 2021 with a fresh $52 million fundraise at a $1 billion valuation, led by IIFL AMC's late-stage tech fund. The D2C market in India expected to reach $100 billion by 2025. The fresh investment is expected to enhance Licious's offerings in fresh meat and seafood consumer business. Ahead of the festive season, private lender HDFC Bank has said it's partnered with over 10,000 merchants for its Festive Treats 3.0 campaign, a near 10-fold increase from 2020. The deals this year include a mix of cashbacks, no-cost EMIs and offers on business, personal, auto and consumer goods loans. Here's what Arvind Kapil, head of the retail division, had to say.
As retail assets, I can assure you, we're very excited about our bit as India unlocks what we are doing to spread a little bit of a cheer as HDFC Bank in the lives of people and help lift and add value to the economic sentiment.
And that's all we have time for on the show today. We leave you with an image that is going viral, posted by the Prime Minister himself with Big Bull Rakesh Jhunjhunwala and his wife. Thanks so much for watching.